Hello everyone. So there has been a lot of speculation surrounding the tragic crash of Air India Flight 171, and a lot of theories are being circulated in the media regarding the same. And my aim for today's video is just to demonstrate the aircraft systems. And I'm currently in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is by no means a professional level flight simulator, but just to maybe help with some of the theories which are being discussed, which I don't believe, it's just speculation at this point, because the only authority in this case we should be looking at is the DGCA, or the Civil Aviation Authority of India. They will be, studying the black boxes and analyzing the videos and everything, and they will come up with their report in a few months, and it may take up to a few years as well to bring out the final report. So we should be looking at that, but in the meantime, the theories which are being discussed, I believe, creates a lot of confusion and panic. So my aim in this video is just to demonstrate a few of the stuff that is being discussed, and bring out some clarity to those who may not understand what they are talking about in the media. And I also wanted to add that aviation is the safest form of transport currently available, and there are a lot of things which need to go wrong for a plane to crash in any way. So it's not like the planes just fall out of the sky without some due to some minor glitch. It is a long chain of events which need to go wrong for such a tragedy to happen. So my urge is just to avoid any speculations, and let the relevant authorities bring out the actual report and study it. As concerned citizen, it is a right to know the truth, and especially for the families of those who suffered. It does not help anyone if we just speculate and point fingers at the persons who are not responsible at all, and it just creates a lot of even more stress for everyone involved. So yeah, just wanted to add that. So yeah, before we start our video, I just want to express my deepest condolences to those who lost their loved ones in this tragic accident. And of course, it's a very painful experience for each and everyone uh, who saw it on the news as well. So yeah, my just thoughts and prayers for everyone. Yeah, let's start with the video. So as you can see, we are currently in the cockpit of Boeing 787 Dreamliner, lined up on the runway of 23 of Ahmedabad International Airport, and I have loaded the plane up with the estimated fuel and weight and balances which may have been used in the actual aircraft. Of course, it's impossible to know the actual weight configuration and all of aircraft, especially until the investigation report, but uh, given the length of the route from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick, this is the fuel and weight and etc. Has been calculated from a flight simulation tool which is designed to do exactly that. So I have done that, and I also configured the flight computer, a flight management computer, to and enter the appropriate speeds and weights and everything. So the uh, configuration is as close as possible to the actual aircraft. Okay, so yeah, so 787 is a very modern airliner, and there are a lot of processes which need to be completed because before we can actually take off from the runway. So one of the most important things, especially in this case, is this checklist. So usually the normal planes, they have this type of checklist in perhaps a pilot's tablet, which they carry it separately, and they complete the checklist before each of the process. So as you can see, this is pre-flight. So after starting the aircraft and before starting the engines, the pilot has to do all these things. And this is before starting the engines, all this needs to be completed. This is before taxiing, and this is before takeoff. Okay, so the main feature of this aircraft safety wise is that if the pilot forgets to complete any of this checklist before the actual phase of flight which it's related to, the aircraft will bring out a warning over here, and it will also generate a sound which will indicate that the checklist has not been completed or some part of the checklist has been missed. So that is the first line of defense against pilot error. And yeah, before we get into all that, I'll just first demonstrate a normal takeoff, how it occurs. So after we complete the checklist, before takeoff checklist, this is a flap lever over here. So currently the flap setting like usual is flaps 5, so I'll just select that. Okay, so as you can see over, the flaps are engaging, and once they engage, this indicator will turn green. So that has been done, and rest of the things I have configured already. It's a lot of complicated stuff which is outside the scope of this video, so I will not be explaining it, but yeah, just know that before the takeoff, everything the normal procedures have been completed and verified, and flight controls and everything has been checked, etc. So there is a very very slim chance of something going wrong unless there is a malfunction, I believe. So you see, it's not just like starting a car and driving down the road. It is a long process which needs to be completed before taking off. So just wanted to demonstrate that here, and we'll just take off and I'll show you how the process is done during a normal takeoff. And of course I'm no pilot, but yeah, I think this will help demonstrate it to you accurately enough. So I have disengaged the parking brakes and will move the thrust levers forward, which will produce the required thrust for the aircraft to take off. So as you can see, this is the plane. And once we reach the required speed for takeoff, the aircraft will call out, and the co-pilot will also be monitoring this under normal operations. So V1 and rotate. So after we rotate, the immediate thing the pilot, co-pilot or whoever is not flying does is retract the landing gear. So they'll call out positive rate gear up, and as you can see, the landing gears have been retracted. And usually after 400 feet the pilots can engage the autopilot. So I have engaged the autopilot over here, and as you can see, the flight computer has taken over and is guiding the flight along the desired path. So once we reach the flap up speed, we will retract the flaps, and as you can see, they are getting up, and here it's indicated over here. This is the flap up speed, and once the flaps have been retracted, the plane will begin to accelerate normally. So this is how overall the normal takeoff sequence is, and now the plane is relatively established on the route and everything has been done. So after this, after a few minutes or so, once the aircraft is confirmed to be stabilized after takeoff, we'll just verify that landing gear has been taken up and the flaps have been retracted as well. So this is the checklist, and it automatically ticks it. The aircraft knows that this has been done, so it is already verified. So now the checklist we need to do is just before we begin descending into London. So that is the normal process. Alright, so now we will discuss the theories that are being discussed in the media. As I said, the 787 is quite an advanced aircraft, and there are a lot of safety measures which help the pilot to if the pilot makes a mistake, they help them to correct the mistakes before the critical phase of flight. So for example, if the pilot forgot, for example, let's assume the pilot forgot to complete the checklist before takeoff checklist and tries to take off without retracting the engaging the flaps in the appropriate flaps fly position. So let me show you what happens. So we are lined up here, and the pilot gradually moves the thrust levers into takeoff position, and see, this warning indicates the aircraft is not in the correct configuration, and it also, as you can hear, there is a loud siren going on, letting the pilot know that the flaps are not correctly configured, and it's indicated over here. So it's very hard to miss, and it's almost impossible for someone to ignore this and continue with the takeoff. The immediate action for the pilot to do in this case is just to cancel the takeoff, and the aircraft would not have moved even a few feet before this warning pops up. So it's very easy to cancel the takeoff in this position, and the alarm is very hard to ignore. So as you can see, this is one of the theories that was being discussed, and I think it's quite hard for someone to ignore the warnings and take off with the wrong configuration. So another thing that is being discussed is that the aircraft lost engine power immediately after takeoff. So obviously, if the aircraft lost both the engines after takeoff due to some reason, then obviously it will not be able to climb. So I don't think there's a need to demonstrate that. But if the aircraft lost just one engine, then theoretically the Boeing 787, like many other similar aircraft, is more than capable of climbing to height with just one engine. But there are some conditions, because as we saw in the video, the landing gear was not retracted, and if one engine failed, the landing gear would be producing a lot of drag, and given the weight of the aircraft, it may be affected it may have affected the takeoff as well. And another thing with the takeoff is there are two types of takeoffs usually. Given the very hot temperatures outside, the engine power reduces effectively, and also if the pilots used what is called a reduced takeoff, uh, which is done usually to save on engine wear and tear. It's a long process. It will take a lot of time to explain what it is exactly, but what they do is, as you can see here, uh, we select, for example, a temperature higher than the outside. uh, so the computer assumes that, for example, the outside temperature is 40 degrees, but we enter 50 degrees in the computer, and the computer will take that into account and reduce the engine power even more. And what that does is it helps to save on engine wear and tear, and also saves fuel, and you know uh, it's environmentally friendly as well. So many times pilot do take off with reduced thrust, and so we'll demonstrate both the scenarios, one with reduced takeoff thrust and one with full, uh, utilizing the full power of the engines, and see how it goes. So first I'm going to do a reduced takeoff thrust, so let's try that. So just checking everything is in order. Okay, looks like it. So we can go ahead and start our takeoff roll. Okay, taking off now. And what I'll do is, once we reach a certain speed, I'll switch off one of the engines, turn off one of the engines manually to simulate a single engine failure during a reduced takeoff thrust, and will not retract the landing gears or the flaps, and see how it goes. So after we reach V1 speed, that is the decision speed after which the pilots cannot stop because there is not enough runway available, So once we reach V1 speed, I'll just turn off one of the engines. Okay, turning off the second engine, now taking off. So immediately, as you can see, the aircraft begins to move towards one side because the force from the engine that is working normally is great, and we have to correct for that. But again, as I said, pilots are trained for single engine takeoff. We can see the aircraft is struggling. I think it's stalling now. So with reduced engine takeoff, the aircraft seems to have crashed. So this time we will take off with full manual thrust, and I will keep rest of the things same. I will not retract the landing gear or the flaps, and I'll also manually turn off one of the engines once we reach the V1 speed, after which we cannot stop. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So taking off now. This time it's using all the available full power. Given the current temperature, I think it's around 90%. Turning off the second engine and taking off. So as you can see, the aircraft struggled over there. I did not counteract the yaw properly over there, but yeah, doing this while recording is difficult. So it is doing a little bit better than the previous scenario with the reduced thrust, but it's still struggling to get any climb out of just one engine. I think it will stall. So again, this is no accurate representation, but as we saw in both scenarios, the aircraft stalled. So one of the major theories I've heard being discussed is that someone retracted the flaps by mistake after takeoff instead of the landing gear. So I just want to show you where the switches for those are located. This is the flaps lever as shown in the previous clip, and this is the landing gear lever. So as you can see, both are located at relatively quite a different position, and whoever is flying, the pilots, it's usually, I believe, a muscle memory, to reach out for this lever after the aircraft attains a positive rate of climb. So once a few seconds after takeoff, the pilot flying says positive rate, gear up, and whoever is responsible just retracts the gear, this lever, and once the aircraft reaches flaps up speed, the person responsible gradually reduces the flaps until it reaches flaps up, fully up position, and then the flight continues. So as you can see, the location of both of these is quite different, and while it's not impossible, it's quite difficult to understand how someone can make this mistake during a relatively normal takeoff, because apparently in the video the takeoff itself was normal, and there was no apparent struggle in controlling the aircraft before takeoff, from whatever the videos are available. So as explained in the previous scenario, this will be a reduced takeoff with a reduced thrust, and I'm going to retract the flaps immediately instead of the landing gear after takeoff. So let's see how it goes. Taking off now. So once we have positive rate, I will retract flaps instead of the landing gear. So in this case, the aircraft did struggle initially, but as you can see, it's slowly but steadily accelerating, and we are reaching a speed where the gear retraction is mandatory. As you can see, the red and black barbels pole around 270 nautical 270 knots. So, but yeah, even if I retracted the flaps immediately, the aircraft struggled a bit initially, but it continued to climb without much issue.